What's up guys, it's Dacky here bringing you another video on the class changes and talents. We're going to start with the Deathknight. This is going to be one video of many. Obviously I'm going to try and get to all the classes, all the updates, all the changes, so you can have a broad spectrum of what we're going to do. I'm going to try and keep this short and simple. So the Deathknights have been changed for Warlords of Draenor. The main differences are that the blood is getting changed significantly. Frost and Unholy only see some small changes, Unholy being the least changed out of the lot, obviously. They're probably happy where Unholy's sitting, where they want to adjust where the tank is, and everything like that. So let's start off by saying that the ability pruning is probably the most affected, as we've got here. Blood Parasites have been removed, Blood Strike's been removed, dual wielding is now Frost only. Can't dual wield on Unholy, obviously. Frost Strike is only to Frost and has been and Death Coil has been removed from Frost, where Death Coil's only for Blood and Unholy. Necrotic Strike's been removed. Now, Necrotic Strike is something we never really used. It was more PvP when it first came out. Raise Dead is Unholy only, so can't raise your dead on Frost or Blood now. That's not really going to be a big bother because they have changed the way abilities work to working with where the Raised Dead is at the moment. A few of the runes on your rune weapons have been changed or removed, just simply because people don't use them. They're there when you level, they're there when you grind through. You don't use them at anywhere near level 90, so they've removed a few there. Another couple of things now, we're scrolling down through here. If you read all through here on the Blizzard page, what you'll find is that Army of the Dead do 75% less damage. They're removing a couple of abilities, they're merging a couple of abilities, but basically all you should really know is Horn of Winter is now a 1 hour buff, does not give you any runic power. Blood Boil has been removed and merged with Pestilence. Quite frankly, you don't need 2, 3, 4 abilities to do the same thing, so they're merging all that, which is really good. Rune Strike has been removed and replaced with Death Coil. Now this is for Blood only. They're removing Rune Strike out of our rotation. I'm a little bit unhappy with that, just simply because Rune Strike was one of our major hitting abilities. It did a serious amount of damage. It also generated a lot of threat, and tanking with a Druid tank that does outgear me in some cases. I'm very surprised that Rune Strike can keep up with that threat generation, which is really, really good. As I was saying, a whole bunch of changes to Frost here. Mostly it's just the damage that's been altered and changed. Obviously Icy Talons now do 20% damage instead of 45, and do 5 up from nothing. A couple of your Threat of Therazane has been merged with Might of the Frozen Wastes, doing a bit more damage with Obliterate and things like this. What this means is Frost is going to still be that hard-hitting, slow-swinging sort of attack that you've seen throughout all the expansions, but quite frankly, it's going to be a little bit more refined. As I was saying, Unholy's pretty much staying where it is. A few things like Unholy Might now increases strength from 10 down from 35. Things like this isn't going to bother us too much, but Unholy is practically staying the same way. They are getting this new ability called Necrosis. Now, Necrosis is the passive ability for Unholy Deathknights. It causes multi-strikes from Festering Strike, Pestilence, Plague Strike, Scourge Strike, and Soul Reaper, also to do a burst shadow damage among enemies based on your attack power. This here as a passive is going to really bring Unholy back up to the PvE zone, where it hasn't seen much light for at least an expansion or two. Moving on to tank here, the biggest couple of things for all tanks is that Resolve is replacing Vengeance. Now if you look up the Resolve and see what Resolve does, quite frankly it does a little bit different than what Vengeance does, but it's going to work very, very well. There is a lot of changes with the Blood Deathknight. I'm not going to read all through this, guys. You can read all through this. Basically what they're doing is tidying it up. They're removing passive abilities that we never really needed. They're merging abilities that we don't need 4 or 5 different abilities to do that. A couple of the big ones here, obviously Heart Strike has been removed, and we should be using Pestilence in its place. Now Pestilence, I haven't seen the tooltip for the ability yet, but it quite looks like it's going to be part of our rotation now that Blood Boil's merged with Pestilence and now Heart Strike's merged with Pestilence. Let's see what that's going to be like when it drops, but that's going to look good. Another big change here, guys, is Rune Tap has now been redesigned. What it's going to do is it's going to give you 50% of damage reduction for 3 seconds, has 2 charges with a 40-second recharge time. This is basically an oh shit button. It's going to be a mini Icebound Fortitude. That's all it's going to be, guys. So keep that on your bars. It's going to be a really good ability. I won't go through too many more. It's just going to get redesigned. It's going to still be the same way, but these changes here aren't going to affect too much about how the Blood plays. And saying that as well, it's not going to affect too much about how Frost plays with these changes here. So, in saying that, let's go across to the talents here. Thank you to Wowhead for providing this with me. Now, this here is basically just going to affect our gameplay more than anything. With a couple of the other classes, when you change spec, you do get a couple of different abilities on your talent tree. With the Deathknight, you don't. Blood, Frost, and Unholy stay the same. You do get different abilities, but that's your class only. Your talents stay the same. The only couple of changes through here is obviously Plaguebringer. It has been Rolling Blood has been removed, obviously, because we don't have that blood boil. We're not going to need Rolling Blood to spread the diseases, basically. So Plaguebringer here, Death Coil, Frost Strike, also infect your target, adding 4 seconds of the duration of Frost Fever and Blood Plague, and adding an additional stack to Necrotic Plague. Now, Necrotic Plague, obviously you can't refresh it in any way, but with Plaguebringer you can obviously add a stack to it. So you could probably put Necrotic Plague on with any one of your abilities, and then just keep that stack extremely high, no matter if you're fighting 1, 2, 10, 20 different ads or mobs or bosses. Plaguebringer is going to be one of those really good abilities for certain circumstances. Plague Leech, still the same way it has always been. This is always the least taken, except for the hardcore of hardcore players. You do gain DPS gains out of it from in Frost and Unholy if you do take Plague Leech. In Blood, really not really needed, and Unholy Blight's the same. Now all these other abilities are the same. You will find that there are a couple of abilities on here that you will be using now in Warlords of Draenor, where you would not even look at them in Panda. And the simple reason why is that when it comes down to Necrotic Plague here, this is going to change the most, basically, and this is how it works. Necrotic Plague is a powerful disease that deals X amount of attack power of Shadow Frost damage every stack, every 2 seconds for 30 seconds. Each time it deals damage, it gains a stack, and it also inflicts another enemy within 8 yards if possible. If and when you're using Necrotic Plague, you gain 2 runic power for whatever target is infected with Necrotic Plague, and that attempts to attack you. It replaces Blood Plague and Frost Fever and is applied by any ability which is either which can apply these abilities. It cannot be refreshed but gains 1 stack instead. This is great. I love Necrotic Plague. What it means is when you're using all your abilities, you're going to run up to a boss, you're going to apply your 2 dots. In this case, in Necrotic Plague, you're going to apply Necrotic Plague. As you're doing your rotation, no matter if you're Frost, Unholy, or Blood, instead of refreshing that time, you're just going to add another stack. So it's going to stack up quite fast. From looking at the beta, it only stacks to 15 stacks, which is going to ramp up to 15 stacks quite fast if you're using your rotation correctly. You can spread it by just waiting. You can't force it to spread. So when you've got a lot of mobs, it's really good. Now that middle sentence there is going to be the best thing for Blood Deathknights, and this is why, because you gain 2 runic power whenever you're infected with Necrotic Plague and it attempts to attack you. Now that's not really good as far as what it is, but if you mix Necrotic Plague with Conversion, and Conversion obviously converts runic power into health, restoring 2% of your maximum health per 1 second and lasts until it is cancelled, guess what? If you've got 10 ads, you're all infected with Necrotic Plague, it's always spreading through that mobs, okay? You don't have to force it to spread. So as long as you don't use your Death Call to dump any runic power, you could use Necrotic Plague, get it to spread, use your Conversion, you've got a consistent heal, you've got 2% of your maximum health every 1 second until everything dies. This is going to be extremely cool for leveling. It's going to be also extremely cool for raids and dungeons as well, guys. So keep that combination in mind. Now to file here, let's just scroll down. To defiles the ground, to the target location of the Deathknight. Every 1 second, there is. Let me read that again. For every 1 second, if there's enemies standing in the defile, it deals 17% of attack power of Shadow Frost damage to them, grows in radius, and damage by 2.5%. Every enemy standing in your defile deals 10% less damage to you, replaces death and decay. This is another one, guys, that's going to be really taken for, say, the dungeon aspect. Not so much for the leveling process, and I don't see it yet in being implemented into raids as a high taken one. Now, yes, it does make the enemies deal 10% less damage to you, which is really good. But quite frankly, guys, if you know the cooldown on death and decay and how you move in through raids and such, you can't use it all that often. Even if you use Defile just for that defense ability and not for the massive amount of damage it could do, you'll be a bit rune locked, so to speak, if we keep the same playstyle as what it is in Panda. So it is a good ability. It does help you with doing 10% less damage, but quite frankly, the combination of necrotic play, conversion, and a simple rotation still outweighs the defile aspect. It's a very cool looking ability, guys, but it's up to you how your playstyle affects this at all. Now, the last level 100 talent here, Breath of Sindragosa. Similar to conversion, 15 runic power to activate, 15 runic power per second. Now, it's a 2-minute cooldown. And basically looks like Cone of Cold or one of those abilities from the mages. It consistently deals 100% attack power of Shadow Frost damage every 1 second to enemies in a conal front with you within 12 yards, and affects them with the Mark of Sindragosa for 6 seconds. You will continue breathing until cancelled or runic power is exhausted. Now, Mark of Sindragosa causes you to be healed for 5% of spell damage dealt by the affected enemies. This is also a really cool ability, but when you look at how it's going to be implemented, the rotation and other abilities you've got available, I see this one as more of a PvP one, guys. What you can do is run up, obviously build your attack power up, use Mark of Sindragosa, and you're going to be healed for every spell damage dealt by that enemy. It can be used in dungeons, it can be used in the raids, but judging by what Necrotic Play can do, judging by what Defile can do, Breath of Sindragosa more so falls into the PvP scene. So there are your 3 level 100 talent, guys. Jump onto wowhead.com, jump onto the Blizzard site to check out some more changes. It's looking really good. They haven't changed too much in the talent situation, but they're very happy where Frost is, they're very happy where Unholy is, and obviously Blood is being changed a bit, basically. There's a lot of these improved blood presence and all these other things that are going to affect it. Dancing Rune Weapon's getting a very good overhaul. All these abilities are getting a nice overhaul. So for you blood tanks that are out there that are liking where they are in Panda, but you want a little bit of tweaking here and there, you want it to be a bit more flowing, your rotation wants to be a bit flowing, and you want some extra cool abilities to use,